I'm Tim, welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Swatch Sistem51 Sistem Blue. This is actually not a watch you can buy on our website, but it's one that's fun enough that I thought it would be a great piece of perspective, novelty, a little bit of a light entertainment in the midst of the great gravity of high horology. So I'm going to show you how the watch fits. I'm going to talk a little bit about the watch and just kind of reflect on where it stands in the scope of the watch industry. Now you can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. The watch fits well. It's not really a small watch or an oversized watch, although its presence is certainly standout. It's actually 42 millimeters across the round of the case, and from lug to lug it's a robust, but again, not oversized 50.5 millimeters. And you can see that the silicone strap really does pull straight down, so it's an easy watch to wear, really, even if your wrist is far smaller than mine. The outright dimensions of this watch don't really compare to a 42 millimeter steel watch or a luxury watch of any kind. The watch wears very light on the wrist. Now it's 13.5 millimeters thick, and you can see with that generously domed and index bestrewn bezel, it's actually an easy watch to fit underneath a tight sleeve. I don't necessarily think this is one you're going to fit underneath a dress cuff in any case, unless you have a real knack for irony and the panache to pull it off. Now the watch does have a silicone strap, so let's talk a little bit about that for a moment. Silicone is distinct from silicon, without the E, in that it's a gummy, synthetic, very soft, rubber-like substance. It's not quite as robust as natural vulcanized rubber as you'd find on a luxury watch, but the flip side of that is it is much more flexible and comfortable on the skin. Now this one's nicely scored underneath to add little channels where sweat, grit, moisture can escape on hot days. The watch isn't expressly a sports watch, but given the style, it's definitely one that you would wear in casual settings. And bear in mind that it only has 3 ATM water resistance, and this could be your summer watch all summer long. Also note the contrasting stitch in blue and a very simple translucent blue pin buckle for easy adjustability on the fly. Now in 2013 at Baselworld, this was one of the absolute stars, possibly the most interesting watch of Baselworld 2013. It took a little while for it to come to market for two reasons. First, Swatch wasn't looking to build just a few of these, it was looking to mass produce them, and the caliber C10111 automatic movement. And two, the watch isn't built by watchmakers. It isn't even regulated by watchmakers. The watch is entirely assembled, inside, outside, and regulated by robots. So 51 parts comprises the movement, 19 jewels and only one screw, and you can see a dead center affixing the rotor. A little bit more on the movement in just a moment, but part of the appeal of this watch is that the movement is inextricably tied to the dial, with the red points on the constellation style matte black dial signifying the positions of pivot jewels on the corresponding movement bridges underneath. Now the watch does beat at a relatively relaxed rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour, and you can see the chug-chug of the seconds hand in not quite pocket watch fashion, but it's got the heartbeat of most Longo watches, for example, 21.6 3 Hertz. Now it does not hack, but it does feature a quick set date such that you can pull the crown out and rapidly cycle to correct the date indication at 3 o'clock. Now after the watch became a sensation at Basel, the world waited for release. They were available late in 2013 in Europe, and in about mid-2014 in the United States. I remember because I was working in the New York watch scene at the time, doing kind of ghostwriting and copywriting, and the pop-up store in Times Square in mid-2014 was an absolute mob scene. There were probably more people lined up to buy this watch than lined up to see photos with costumed characters. The bottom line is that this watch was a sensation then, and it remains so to this day, if you take it on its own terms. Now, here's what's exceptional about the movement, other than the fact that it has virtually no human input. It does have a 90-hour power reserve, which is pretty exceptional, and that explains the slower 3 Hz beat rate, make the most of the power reserve. While Swatch has advertised plus or minus 7-second performance over a 24-hour period, it's unclear whether that's in multiple positions, at multiple or one temperature, or realistically whether that's a brand new watch from the factory or a watch as you receive it at retail after shipping and handling. Now, honestly, I've measured this watch at about plus 20 to plus 30 seconds a day, so perhaps not the most precise movement, but the fact is it is sealed for life, and just like for instance, Tag Heuer, it actually comes with a 2-year international warranty, so Swatch is standing behind the timepiece. Now technically, not just assembled by robots, but assembled in a very different fashion. The hairspring is actually grounded to the base plate. The 5 modular plates are actually held together by solder, not screws. There's a great deal of structural adhesive in the watch, so for the most part, assembly is all done with glue. And if we jump back into the movement for a moment, the plates and the bridges are actually made of R-cap, which is a fairly sophisticated, corrosion-resistant anti-magnetic alloy that's also used by, for example, Corum in its tie bridge tourbillon, and Urwerk for many of its high-end, high-horology calibers. So, an interesting choice of materials and assembly. It also features something that I could just barely confirm through a loop under the balance bridge, and note it is a full dual-anchored balance bridge for stability, but it actually has a plastic escape wheel and anchor. So the actual pallet fork and the escape wheel are both a sort of gray plastic. Maybe they're Durlin, another synthetic, but very unusual to see in a watch movement, and it's kind of a throwback to the old Tissot Astrolon caliber 2250 of the 1970s. I have no doubt that this is the true engineering heir to many of the techniques pioneered with the Astrolon caliber. Definitely Google that one if you haven't seen it. It's very cool. So the Swatch Sistem51 Sistem Blue is an interesting timepiece. I don't know if it's one for high horology aficionados with a sense of irony and humor, or if it's strictly one for the hipsters, but it's a very interesting watch, and at $150, it just might be the wave of the future, as I can see many of the automated assembly and regulation techniques, for instance, dynamic poising of the balance with a laser, finding their way into mainstream Swiss luxury watchmaking. You can see this watch, well, frankly, not on our website, but on Swatch USA. Definitely take a look, and let us know what you think in the comment box. Is this thing awesome or atrocious? Is it kind of a gateway to high horology for non-fans of the watch, or is it a gateway to something else? Is it introducing disposability and automation into a world where perhaps it doesn't belong? Sound off in the comment threads and let us know what you think.